Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Nerd Mode On, and today I'm actually going to be talking with you guys a little bit about where I've been over the last month, considering that I haven't been uploading any videos to the channel and I really haven't had the opportunity to give you guys any information in correlation to why this has been happening. So of course, let's kind of start from the very beginning to give you guys some information, which of course will bring you up to speed when it comes down to what actually happened, as well as what I perceive to be the issue, which as of this moment really hasn't been fixed, but we'll kind of get to that in just a moment. So as I'm sure some of you guys are well aware, Windows 10 is something that's available to anybody that has Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, or a previous version that wishes to upgrade to Windows 10 within the 1 year mark to make it a free upgrade. Now, of course, if you're anything like me, when you found out that there was going to be a new upgrade for free, you definitely knew you were going to capitalize on it, but you didn't want to do it right away. This is something that I try not to do when it comes down to software, considering that a lot of times applications really don't upgrade to the latest operating system right away. Now, as a due result of this, I definitely kept my eye to what a lot of people were saying, and for the most part, when it first came out, there was a lot of glaring issues with it. I'm sure a lot of people had some audio issues, and that's a lot of stuff that I read about in relation to upgrading to Windows 10. So of course, this is something that really concerned me, considering that I use my audio equipment almost every single day. May that be making videos for you guys by making the commentary proportions, playing with friends, and communicating to have better moments for the footage that I use in a lot of my videos, and even in some minute cases trying to fix some audio bugs that are on my behalf. Now, of course, I've pretty much kind of fleshed out a lot of those in the past, but for the most part, every once in a while something random will happen, and of course I want to try to have the best audio that I can possibly have. Now, alongside Windows 10 causing some audio issues when it comes down to microphones and webcams, I also read some articles in relation to some of the programs and features that are not necessarily functioning the way they're supposed to be. Now, of course, this is mainly because the manufacturer of those said software and hardware devices unfortunately have not upgraded and programmed in relation to Windows 10, as well as I also read some articles about some recording software that I owned at the time that unfortunately was not updated to the current point, so it actually wasn't going to be able to be used on Windows 10. So of course I kind of decided to wait until they had had the opportunity to upgrade to the most recent version, and I'm glad I did overall, considering that I am currently rocking Windows 10 at this current moment. So of course that's the story of me upgrading from Windows 8.1 to Windows 10. That doesn't necessarily give you guys any information to what happened, so of course let's kind of talk a little bit about my experiences with customer service, as well as actually what the problem that I'm talking about is. So when I upgraded from Windows 8.1 to Windows 10, my microphone for whatever particular reason decided to not want to transmit audio. And sometimes it would transmit audio, but it would be at such a decreased volume that you guys would never be able to understand it. It would sound like I was muffling while drowning underwater. So overall, I came to the conclusion that it was Windows 10. I mean, it made sense. It was working perfectly fine less than a week ago. I hadn't really used it up until that point, and I hadn't actually struck it or done anything to cause physical damage to the overall microphone. So at that particular moment, I kind of came to the conclusion that it was really unfortunate that Windows hadn't had the opportunity to fix their software, considering that it had been out for quite some time at this current moment. So while in the midst of doing everything else, coming up with some conclusions to why the audio wasn't working, I did a lot of the basic troubleshooting, and then I started to go on to Google to see if this is an issue that a lot of users had been experiencing. To my surprise, I found more than over 100 articles talking about this, but a lot of them came to the conclusion that it was just the consumer or the user of their computer not understanding what to do to select the microphone once again. A lot of the articles that I read talked about how people just needed to reselect their microphone, considering that Windows reverted it back to the default version, which overall wasn't having any transmission go through it, considering that their microphone or webcam was not selected. So that was really frustrating after reading over 100 articles talking about the most basic way to fix a microphone while not transmitting, so of course I was getting a little frustrated at this point, and I did a little bit more research. So of course I kept at it, I did a little bit more research, dug a little bit deeper, definitely tried to decrease the amount of results I was getting while being a little bit more specific to what the issue primarily was. So an article popped up talking about how I might need to update my device drivers, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is very basic as well, but it didn't really cross my mind considering that I never had this issue in the past. So I went through that whole entire spiel of trying to update everything in the sound category. Unfortunately, they were all the way completely upgraded and updated, so of course there was really nothing to do at that point. So I scrolled down to the comments to see if anybody had really commented on what the article was in reference to, as well as maybe gave some more suggestive tips to how to resolve the issue. Some people were saying to completely uninstall the device driver and then reinstall it by restarting Windows, so of course I decided to do that, and unfortunately, to no surprise, the issue still persists. So of course, at this point, I'm really heated. I'm angry, this is ridiculous, and I'm wasting a lot of time considering that I'm wanting to play with one of my friends that's in the military, and he doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of time to waste considering that he's always very busy. So as a last-ditch effort, I decided to revert back to Windows 8.1 considering that the issue wasn't happening on Windows 8.1, and this is only an issue in reference to Windows 10. Unfortunately, after waiting 30 minutes for that to revert back to the previous version, unfortunately the issue is not fixed, and at this point I don't understand what's going on. I'm starting to think that Windows just completely blew up my microphone and it's all Windows' fault. So while this is all going on, my friend's just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting, which is absolutely ridiculous considering that I would hope that we'd been able to play a couple of hours ago, but unfortunately he's just kind of waiting for things to occur and me to give him the go-ahead that everything's okay, but unfortunately that really never comes along. So after a few hours of doing this ridiculous, monotonous work, I decided to tell him, hey man, you can just go play. I'm not going to have the opportunity to play with you tonight. I'm sorry for wasting your time, essentially. So the next day rolls around and I really haven't still fixed the issue. I've continued to read a lot of articles, but it's the same boring stuff. It's telling me stuff I already know, and it's the most basic understanding of how to use a computer as well as your sound drivers. So I decide to call up Windows, I give them some information, and I get over to one of the technical specialists, somebody that's supposed to be really informed about what Windows is about, and she basically tells me that it's not the software, it's my hardware. Now, of course, I'm kind of in denial at this point. I'm like, this stupid lady doesn't know what she's talking about. Can I please speak to somebody that's a little bit more familiar with what Windows is about and the problems that are persisting that I'm talking about? Now, of course, I don't really say this. I mean, I'm not a douche when it comes down to talking with customer service and stuff like that. I just kind of go, okay, well, I'll definitely contact them and see if it's something on their end. So I hang up and I'm just kind of sitting there like, oh, this lady, I bet she's so full of it, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But of course, I'm trying to think logically and I'm like, well, it does kind of make sense. Maybe the microphone cable went out, or maybe it's the microphone, or maybe even, God forbid, the mixer. And I'm hoping it's not the mixer considering that it's $80 more than what I originally paid for it. So as you do, I decided to go to Behringer's website and contact one of the technical specialists. Unfortunately, they don't have a phone number. You have to do it the old-fashioned way by sending a stupid email and then hoping that they'll get back to you within 48 hours. To my surprise, he got back to me in less than 20 hours, but of course that's 20 hours too long in my personal eyes considering that I really wanted the issue to be fixed right there on the spot, but unfortunately that's just not the case. So of course we're going back and forth on emails, while at the same time I decide to call up Audio-Technica considering that I have the AT2035, and I'm like, hey, I can have two conversations going at once, maybe one of these people will have an idea of how to fix the issue. One of the redeeming qualities about Audio-Technica is you can directly get in contact with one of their technical specialists. You don't have to do the whole, let me send a random email and then I'll get back to you within 48 hours. Now, the first time I got in contact with one of the technical specialists, this guy was extremely helpful. Like, I've never been able to call up a technical specialist kind of person before in the technical field and been able to get this A+ service, considering that it usually just doesn't happen this way. You usually get somebody that's really trying to push as many people through the line as humanly possible. Or you get somebody that just absolutely has no idea about audio stuff. They're just kind of working there as a job, which is fine because I've done that in the past as well. So I can't knock people that do that, but I'm just saying that this guy was absolutely amazing when it came down to customer service. So of course he pulls up the Behringer X1204 USB mixer and of course kind of gives me some tips about what the mixer is and overall how I should be using it and what some of the dials do. As well, at this point, we're trying to do a little bit of technical support on the microphone to decide if it's the microphone, the cable, or the mixer. So of course we do some basic testing. If you guys are familiar with the mixer, it does have the ability to kind of give you readings as you're talking into it. And so of course he's kind of telling me to do some sentences as well as make some loud noises to make sure the microphone's even receiving transmissions. So of course the mixer is just barely reading even when I'm like yelling into the microphone. I mean, I wish I could give you guys an idea, but I'm like clapping into the microphone, I'm breathing into it, just trying to make this dial go above the 20 mark. And it's just barely doing it. And it's only doing it on the left-hand side, which is definitely not good considering that it should be doing it on left and right, considering that it's in stereo mode, and this is just something that it should be doing considering that it's been doing it in the past. So after about an hour of us kind of going back and forth and doing a little bit of troubleshooting, which I'm not going to get into the entire details, but we definitely tried a lot when it came down to trying to make the mixer and the microphone work together, and unfortunately, to no surprise, it definitely did not work. So as a due result of us having no luck, he decides to recommend that I should try a different cable. But unfortunately, I am somebody that doesn't have another cable, considering that I'm not too familiar with how unlikely these things are to fail, and unfortunately this is something that must be kind of consistent in the audio field. So as a due result of this recommendation, I decided to go to Amazon, purchase the cable, overnight ship it, and I end up spending like $7 for one night shipping, which is a little excessive when you consider that the package it came in is literally an envelope, as well as it really doesn't weigh anything. It's a cable. I mean, it's nothing special. I mean, you guys wouldn't look at it and go, man, that's some plated gold right there. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. That's unfortunately just not what it is. So of course I'm getting a little excited. I'm like, ah man, this is gonna fix it. I'll be able to start making videos again, considering that I've been really wanting to make videos, and to my surprise, it definitely does not work. So of course, me being me, I call back up Audio Technica, I get in contact with another technical specialist, considering that I don't have to fill out some stupid form in order to get a return call. And of course, I kind of talk to him a little bit, tell him that I've already called a couple of days ago, and he just kind of tells me that it's probably my microphone. And of course, that does make logical sense. If the microphone is struggling to transmit audio in an audible form, then of course it kind of makes sense that it might be the microphone. So of course, the technical specialist then decides to tell me where I can find the warranty form. I fill that out, print it off, do all that fun stuff that I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with when it comes down to hardware related issues. And I of course send it off to the place where it'll eventually come to on Monday, but of course it's going to take about a week for them to kind of look into it, considering that I'm sure Audio Technica gets a lot of stuff sent back, not because they're a bad company, but because they have good warranties and there's no reason to buy another $170 microphone if they're going to fix it for free. Now, while this is all going on, I really haven't been talking too much to the Behringer customer service representative that I've been talking to. Of course, there's been a couple of emails and I just kind of gave him a brief understanding of what's going on, and I'd keep him posted as we kind of get a little further along in the process. Well, today my microphone re-shows back up and I'm really excited. I'm like, man, the issue's going to be fixed. And of course, this is really awesome. And I'm sure many of you guys are like, hey, your microphone must be working considering that you're talking to us. Well, that's actually not unfortunately the truth. I mean, of course my microphone does work, but the issue actually was never with the microphone. It's actually with the mixer. So of course I decided to plug my microphone into the Behringer X1204 mixer, and unfortunately it decided not to work. I mean, it was kind of working, but the audio was still having the similar issue that I described at the beginning of the video. You guys would never be able to understand what I was saying, considering that it sounded like I was drowning underwater while at the same time trying to say a sentence. So I kind of put on my thinking cap, I go and grab my Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, which is something that I really don't ever use, considering that I have a mixer that is a 12-channel mixer that is far superior to this kind of entry-level piece of equipment. So I decide to install the latest driver as one does, plug in the microphone, and wha-bang, now you guys can hear me, as you guys have come to decide and figure out. So now at this point, I'm kind of heated. I mean, of course, I've waited over 2 weeks for this whole entire process and then come to the conclusion that one, I didn't get charged by Audio Technica. So to that, thank you so much, considering that I would have been absolutely furious if I got charged for the return shipping on that. And two, now I have to wait and see if I can get this Behringer mixer sent in, but the only unfortunate part is that I didn't register the product within 90 days of originally purchasing it, so now I don't have the 3-year warranty that is associated with this product. Unfortunately, they only give you this limited 1-year warranty, but if you don't register the product within 90 days of originally receiving it, unfortunately, you just kind of lose out on the other 2 years. Now, I'm not really blaming this particular company. It's not their fault that I'm stupid and I can't read the manual. That's completely on me. I'm not going to say anything bad about them, and I love their product. But it is really frustrating that there is a possibility that I'm going to have to rebuy this 12-channel mixer, as well as pay an additional $90 on top of what it already cost, with tax and everything associated into that. So when it really comes down to it, the basic premises of my story that I've been kind of rambling on for the last 15 minutes in relation to is that, unfortunately, I'm using my microphone, but it's just not in the way that I had envisioned it. Now, of course, I'm going to continue to do a little bit more testing on my mixer before I completely say it's the mixer, but I'm almost 95% sure it's the mixer, considering that it's the only other piece of equipment that could possibly hindering the microphone's ability to work. Considering that Windows isn't the problem, considering that you guys are able to hear me right now, as well as the issue cannot lie with the microphone or the microphone cable itself, considering that we're actually talking right now. So of course this has definitely been very frustrating, as I'm sure you guys have come to kind of figure out with my long drawn out story, but of course I kind of wanted to keep you guys up to date, considering that it's definitely really interesting. But I guess the silver lining to this entire process and story is that I had really good experience with customer service. I mean, I never thought I'd be able to say that, considering that, like I talked about at the beginning, there's always a lot of people that jump into fields that they're not too familiar with, myself included, so of course I am part of this problem. But it was just definitely really nice to hear about people that are a lot more familiar with products, that work with this kind of stuff, and overall they were just really nice. So of course I can't really have too many gripes with these companies overall, and it's definitely been a really enjoyable experience trying to get a little bit more information about products I own, and ultimately having Audio-Technica fix something that actually wasn't broken, so technically I got a new piece of equipment and an already used product. So I guess at the end of the day that's definitely really cool, I guess. But anyway, guys, I just kind of want to give you guys a little bit of information. I thought having this kind of story time, so to speak, giving you guys a silver lining, some hope that, not every company is out there to steal all your money, while at the same expense telling you that technology breaks and has some complications along the way, but I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with that type of process. But until the next episode, guys, this has been NMO, and I'm going to be signing out, guys. Peace.